Good morning. How are you, mate? What is going on today? Tuesday. I'm out here in the Cotswolds. Look at this. This is proper old England, isn't it, mate? Thatched houses. Lovely part of the world. But continue mission, mate. Charlie Mike. Got to keep going. Just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively. But still out here doing my walks, getting my steps in. Girls are in bed. I'm just getting amongst it. Having a walk. Seeing what the place is about. Seeing what's going on. Lovely little Land Rover here. Tell you what, might be the epicentre of Land Rover and Barber around these parts. It's a nice gaff. What we're talking about today though, Steve, talking about transfers. Hurtling towards November. Hurtling towards transfer season. Positivity abound at Manchester United for the first time in a minute. And I don't know if there's a yin and yang in the universe happening. Manchester United and Liverpool maybe aren't allowed to be successful at the same time. When we're pushing for stuff, we've had Arsenal and Chelsea as our rivals. There was a little bit of a crossover with Manchester City when they got the lottery win. When Liverpool have been successful, they've had a little bit of Manchester City, I guess latterly Arsenal. But we've never really been competitive and going for each other at the same time. Closest it happened, I guess, was in 2009. But even then, we've never really shared the spoils, have we? 2001, I guess we won the league and they won all the plastic trophies. Maybe that's probably the closest time, certainly in my lifetime, that I can remember it. Bit of building work going down here. Morning. But maybe that's what the script says, that the universe can't handle both us and Liverpool having it with each other and being the sort of the two dominant forces going head to head. Maybe one of us has to be in transition, one of us has to be bad, and one of us has to be sitting at the top of the pile. Maybe, I don't know. Just spitballing here, I don't know. But that's what it feels like, at least at the moment, I would say. So, really enjoying watching their downfall at the moment. Really enjoying things starting to turn, people starting to go, wait a minute, what's going on here? Really starting to enjoy watching people kind of question the things Slot's saying, because I'll be honest, his press conferences have been some of the wildest wibble that anyone has ever spoken at a press conference. Not since Cantona has anyone left people speechless with the shit they've come out with. But at least Eriksen's deliberate. I don't think his is deliberate. Which on some levels makes it even funnier, doesn't it? If they lose any more, I would hope and expect that the pressure begins to build. The timing of Steve Bartlett's interview with Jurgen Klopp, which I've not watched yet, where I do know because I've seen a social clip of it, where he says, would he come back to manage Liverpool? And he sort of says, yeah. I think that's something which is probably weighing heavy on the board at Liverpool. Watching the Liverpool sort of fan channels kind of scratch their heads around, and I'm seeing them start talking about things like, you've got to drop Mo Salah. You got to start building a team around Wirtz and Isak. Mate, what happened to loyalty? You know, has Salah not earned the right to maybe be played through a little bit of a slump in form? Have you not maybe looked into the reasons perhaps why there's been a slump in form with him? Is it everything around him? Is it him? Does he need a break? Guy's played a incredible amount of football in the last few years. he's not just unplugged, has he? Have you looked into why you're conceding as many goals as you are doing? You know, for the first half, 3/4 of this season, United had Bayern in net, so we were 1-0 down anyway at the start of a game. Since we've had Lemons come in, Lemon, I'm going to figure out how to say his name at some point, but you're just going to have to roll with it for a bit for now. You know, United have looked a hell of a lot better in every department. It shows you how important the team is when it comes to football. You don't rise to the strongest player in your team, you fall to the weakest link in your team. That's how it works. That's how it is. That's the game. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's the truth. That is the game. You're only as good as your weakest player. I have no idea where I'm going, by the way. I'm just walking and see what happens. So transfers. Looks like Napoli are on the cusp of making Rasmus Højlund a permanent Napoli player to the tune of around about 44 million euros. And they're looking at doing that sooner rather than later. And they could do that as soon as the January transfer window. Now, if they do, that means Manchester United might have some money to spend. There's also some talk that Joshua Zirkzee could be going out on loan and that he's been offered to West Ham. I think Joshua Zirkzee is a really good footballer. I think he's intelligent. I think he operates in between the lines fantastically. I think he's got good vision. And I think he's a really good footballer. I think he could operate as a backup to, say, Acuna in this team. I don't think there'd be a problem with that in the slightest. But he ain't a number 9 in this team. And he would not be a good number 9 in this team. Oh, that track gets all muddy down there. I'm going to go back this way. So he's going to have to operate in one of the sort of what we call inside forward attacking midfield kind of roles. Now, I don't get why he couldn't do that. I think he'd be very good at that. I think he'd be very useful at that. Whether or not he wants to stick around and you know, have limited minutes and watch Cunha play all the time, yeah, probably not. Especially in a World Cup year. That's playing on a lot of people's minds, and I think Kobbie Mainoo's mind as well. Now, I don't think Joshua Zirkzee looked particularly good when he came on at the weekend. I don't think Mainoo looked particularly good when he came on at the weekend. Could argue that most of the subs that came on at the weekend didn't look good, and they kind of dropped off United's level a little bit and allowed Brighton back into the game in some sort of a degree. But if you get a permanent sale of Højlund done in January, and you move Zirkzee on, well, there's some talk of United and Newcastle going head-to-head over Elliot Anderson. Now, this is either smart or wibble. I don't think it's the truth. I don't think it's the truth. Nottingham Forest have slapped a 100 to 120 million pound price tag on Elliot Anderson. Now, we all knew the owner was a knob. But talk about getting ahead of your station, mate, he's not worth half that. And I was leaning towards Wharton. And I like Anderson, and I'd absolutely have him in the mix. And I would not be upset if United signed him at all. But here's the truth. If you spend 120 million, you can't have someone who's had a good season. You can't just sign someone for 120 million. You need 3 or 4 years of undeniable, how's he still here? Why is he not playing for Real Madrid? This is insane. Yes, we'll take him. Sort of evidence to back up why they're worth 120 million pound. That's bonkers cash. Absolutely bonkers cash. Now, I say it's smart because the first person to throw a number out in a negotiation has just put a hook in the negotiation. Reminds me of, was it Peter Ridsdale? Was it Seth Johnson? When he sits down to sign Seth Johnson at Leeds. Did he come from Derby? I can't remember where he came from. But the guy was on like £5,000 a week. And he sits down with Ridsdale. And Ridsdale's like, right, talking about wages. You're not going to take the piss out of us. we're not paying you any more than 50 grand a week. At the time, Roy Keane was on 50 grand a week. To give you some sort of context, Roy Keane was probably the best player in the Premier League, 2000, 2001. I think this is when this was. So it was around that time. It's like, we're not taking a piss. You're not having more than 50 grand a week. Seth goes, I need to speak to my agent outside. They go outside and they go, oh my, yeah, all right, calm down, walk in. And they go, okay, right, we'll do it for 50k. So, you put in the first number out. What it does mean is you can't now, let's say you're Manchester United and you ring up Nottingham Forest and you go, hey, Anderson, talk to me, man. What are we saying? Well, you've seen the newspapers, mate. They're saying 100 mil. Yeah, they're saying 100 mil because you said 100 mil, mate. They're not saying 100 mil because he's actually worth 100 mil. They're saying 100 mil because someone's leaked that number out to him. But by the same rule, you can't go in at 35, 40 because you get laughed at. Because this figure is out there now, whether it's the truth or whether it's whatever, this figure is out there. You can't go in and stick 35 on the table and be like, there you go, what do you think about that? No, let's say he's worth 50, which is probably where he is. Even 50 looks nuts now. So it makes the negotiation really hard, but it also means that Forest are probably going to get way more than he's worth because they were the first ones to throw a number out. If he's north of 60, even 65, I'd be so tempted to walk away. I think he's very, very good. I think he's got a very good ceiling, but 65 plus for him. Even with English tax, English tax might push it to 70, but think about what we're saying here, 70 million pound for Elliot Anderson. I don't know if you can justify that, genuinely don't know if you can justify that. That seems insane, man, doesn't it? Seems absolutely bonkers. But I think we're in for a wild ride, and I think while the positivity is high, you're probably going to see even more United transfers. Possibly because the positivity is high, possibly because we're getting our ducks in a row now, ahead of January. And I'll be honest with you, I find it exciting because I think the players that we signed, from Sesko to Lemons to Cunha and Mbumo, I've been very excited with our signings so far this year. So I can't wait to see what else they bring. If they bring in a midfielder, I'll be well happy with that. Anyway, I'm going to go wake the girls up, get some breakfast, and I'm going to have a cracking day out in the Cotswolds. Enjoy yours, stack your wins, I'll see you in the next one. Laters.